All right, everybody. Hey there. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. Greg LaBeouf back here with you as usual, but this week we have a very special guest. Not Coach Dustin, not Coach Brad, but we have Trevor Hardy, the enigma, the infamous. I don't know. I tried to think of a lot of descriptor words for you, but honestly, I'm at a loss. So I'll just wing a really cool intro for you because Trevor Hardy, not only is he an accomplished martial artist, accomplished human being, really, also one of my very first mentors. We've had Trevor on before. I've been lucky enough to have Trevor before, as well as Junior Olsen and stuff. But Trevor was really fundamental very early on in my development as a martial artist, as a fighter. There's so many great things I learned from you, Trevor. So I'm happy to have you back. But we're not gonna do what we did before. Trevor is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Trevor is a Thai boxer, an MMA fighter, a boxer. I mean, your list of accomplishments are long and impressive. And again, and that is just, we could talk about your martial art credentials. And those are impressive. But also as a human being, you're one of the most genuine, caring, compassionate guys that I know. My good friend Trevor Hardy is with us tonight. So also, I'm just going to throw out there, the owner of Hard Training Gym. Trev, you've just done so much stuff. So why don't we start by you saying hi?
That's a pretty good introduction. I feel like we should just stop this whole thing right there because it can only be downhill from that.
Well, we all have there's two sides to every person. No, it truly is. It's awesome to have you on, Trev, again. I love when we get a chance to chat. We chat, fairly often, and we do a lot of training off screen and, away from all this, just personal lives.
Yeah, maybe a little too often for you. But
yeah. Well, listen, that's a two-way street, I'm sure. It's nice that we can kind of share a little bit because I was saying earlier, like, it almost doesn't feel, it doesn't do you justice if we just talk about this from, a martial art, combative sport athlete. If we just talk about that, it's too one-dimensional for everything that you're into with health and fitness and just overall as a human being. And it's like, and that's kind of what we're going to dive into deeper tonight because we titled this podcast, Don't Die. And that is multifaceted. And I'm excited to really start breaking a lot of stuff down and unpacking this because both in regards to what I'm doing and what my mission and purpose is, but also, you got a lot of irons in the fire. And I think people are really going to benefit from hearing your different perspectives on a lot of different subjects as it pertains to the concept of don't die. So if we just hang tough for 2 seconds, Trev, I'm going to cut to my intro. We're going to be back in a few seconds and we're going to go deep with Trevor Hardy. So just hang with us, everybody. Every day I hear more stories of good people being brutally assaulted and murdered by some individual who has a repeat history of violent offenses, drug addiction, and mental health issues, who is free to walk the streets in the same city where I live, work, and where I am raising my 2 daughters. Well, I'm tired of screaming at the TV, and enough is enough. Throughout history, there have always been men willing to answer the call to the threats against our way of life. Well, today, that threat is right outside our doors, on our streets, in our neighborhoods, on our public transportation system, outside the places we work, and even outside of our children's schools. My new mission is to create and train a group of men that believe in the right to life and value the freedom a man has to protect his life, his family, and his property. I'm Greg LaBeouf. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. All right, we are back. Trevor Hardy is with us. We're going to talk about a concept that we called, don't die. We're going to unpack that, a lot of different facets to it. But Trev, let's start with you. Like, what is that concept, don't die to me? Or where do you want to start? Where would you like to jump in on this?
Well, first of all, shout out to Brian Johnson, the wealthy entrepreneur who, after selling a very profitable business, went on this quest for longevity. And he had a t-shirt, I saw him the other day, that said, don't die. And when you and I were discussing longevity and other things the other day, that's what we decided to call this podcast. So that was the inspiration for this thing. So big shout out to Brian Johnson. Thank you for the inspiration. And so with the hard training, our business and ammo, basically with developing athletes, but as it has evolved, the athletic development has evolved, it has expanded to the general population, and the health and fitness aspect is how do we make the body feel better, perform better, and last longer. So those are the three filters that everything goes through. And when we're younger, some of these things will converge, and we get older, they start to diverge. And of course, as someone who is getting older and has experienced some of the changes that entails, unfortunately, the longevity aspect of training is now, more at the forefront, and the whole thing kind of is underpinned by the principle you and I have been discussing since we started training together, all those years ago, which is like, what is the very best way to do whatever you want to do? And that was kind of the JKD, Jeet concepts underpinning as well. So what is the best way to train, back what we were doing back in the day, which was sport combat, which was, of course, always evolving. And what you were doing would be weaponizing people to deal with real-world violence. And we're trying to apply, of course, that same philosophy to health and longevity. What are the best ways? How do we help the body to feel better, perform better, and last longer? And that's the strength conditioning methods, that's nutrition supplementation principles, and that's the healthy living practices. And as time has gone on, we actually expanded on that. But what do you think about this idea of that, the underpinning of the philosophies being similar in terms of the, like, preparing for the combat in the sport context, preparing to weaponizing people and getting them ready for real world violence or avoiding real world violence, and then the same sort of, having that same sort of, we're going to go and find the best people in the world, what are they doing, who's getting the outcomes we want to get, how do we do that, and then like the distillation of the very best of that into something that people can use to practically apply all of this in their own life to have, a better, longer, and your MO kind of a safer life.
Yeah, I mean, I love the whole setup that you just did in the intro to it and stuff, because I think it's very important that, like, if people are talking about, like, if we talk about martial arts, or you talk about combat sports, or you talk about weaponized against violence, or you talk about training athletes or health and fitness, I mean, we could look at this and we can, although there is crossover, obviously, but you can look at those as each as separate subjects. But you're distilling it down to saying, like, what are some of the, like, what's the underpinning, or what's the immutable concept that is connecting things? And so one of those, as I'm hearing you talk about it, is, of course, what is the most functional way? Like, what are the very best people in the world that are getting the result that we want? And obviously we want a result that is beneficial to us, right, as individuals and as a whole. But what are the very best people doing? How can we do that? How do we practically apply this? And so if we're talking about, the concept of don't die, and then, you come off that a little bit to be like, I want to, feel good, perform better, last longer, all of these types of concepts. I mean, clearly, it's almost like in violence, I'd say, listen, what right supersedes the right to life? And there is no right, because without life, you have no other rights. Like, it all stops without the right to life. So right to life is a fundamental thing. But we also know that if you don't have your health, then what else can you do, right? So I think just universally, we're on a concept that ties everything together. And it's like, how do we feel better, live longer, perform better? And so whatever area you are looking to apply that to, combat sports, self-preservation, preservation of life, just overall, health and vitality late into your years so that you can enjoy a high quality of life, I think that this subject is worth exploring. So I'm going to throw something back at you, because there's a couple things that I heard that I would like to talk about a little bit and get your viewpoints on it, because one of the things is the term practically applied. because for me and what I do, and this is, something I thought maybe we'd work our way into, but I'm just going to throw it out there right now. We can unpack it. Is I see a do more versus do less potential contrast, and where I see that is like I look. I'm nowhere near into the depth of study of healthy living, nutrition, all of the different things like you are. I defer to many other people that know far, far more than I do. But what I see from an outside, and please, feel free to talk about this, is a lot of the ways that you talked about Brian Johnson, and you got this 45-year-old billionaire who is working hard to reverse age, and you need people like this because he has the money, the time, the resources, the energy, the desire, and the passion. But a lot of what he's doing cannot be practically applied by the average layperson simply because a cold plunge tub is $20,000, this and that, all this type of stuff. Whereas, if we're talking about practical application, is it possible for the average layperson? I look at the training that goes into training combat athletes into martial arts, and like Dr. G, a Gurkha, was quoted as saying, like, most combat athletes are Ferraris. Most men that operate in war are dump trucks. There's a distinct difference, but dump trucks function very well in war. So, I know that's a big subject, but yeah, I think there's an interconnectedness. And what I'd like to get into is what are the differences between those doing cutting edge vanguard research and the practical application for like the lay people like me or whatever. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I just threw a lot at you, but let's
totally.
pick it apart.
That is a great segue. And that is, so that's kind of what the mission for people that want to get involved will be on. Perfect. And so we have this, the bulk of the science, and we have the Brian Johnson of the world. They're going to do this, like his $2 million annual budget for self-care is certainly beyond the scope of most people. But the principles, like always, like in every context, the principles are the same. So it's like the MO for us has always been meat, vegetables, fruit, and nuts. That's what you eat. That takes care of your nutrition. Now, within that, there's lots of fine tuning that can be done, but just doing that creates a lot of good outcomes and helps us avoid some potential pitfalls. Exercise, if we're putting the exercise through those filters, make the body feel better, perform better, last longer. And with exercise, basically we've got, and this is from another well-known podcaster and fitness celebrity, Peter Attia. Fitness, we've got strength, then we've got stability, we've got aerobic fitness, we got anaerobic fitness. And developing those does not take enormous resources at all. And, there's a great expression, what gets measured gets managed. So kind of knowing where one is on the strength, stability, aerobic, anaerobic fitness continuum helps us to move forward more effectively. But that's a layer of it. And some of the other things that he's doing, and let's bring in like a third podcaster and fitness personality, who is Gary Brecka, who's now generally acknowledged for saving Dana White's life with all these different health interventions. And the cold exposure, you could have a very expensive unit, or you could just take a cold shower. And the second one, spoiler, is cheaper, and anybody can do that. And he had on his podcast with Joe Rogan talking about his red light system, which is a bed, and I think it retailed for $125,000. So you could do that, or you could go stand out in the sunlight. Again, the second one, more economical. And finally, the PMF mats that he introduced, and these I love these things, and I use them. I have a right sitting over here. I have a red light unit, and so one can do that. Mine is $125,000, but the PMF mat, he says himself, instead you could do that, or you could just go outside and stand on the ground in bare feet and use grounding to get most of the benefits. So that is kind of the thing. It's like with the strength and conditioning, we have the methods that we know work well with athletes to perform at the highest level. And now, how do we take the science, that underpins all of that and help everybody everywhere get the very best of it in such a way that, again, is observing those filters. Like the last longer thing, that's the training. The training that I do now is so informed by longevity. Even, like jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, like I still do those things, but now it's in a way where I'm observing longevity as kind of the first priority. And with, I didn't know all these things when I was younger, and like have a few issues physically that could have been avoided. So that's part of what I want to make sure that we're able to help people with, is avoiding those things. So the exercise is, the first rule, Hippocrates, do no harm. So the exercise is always, beneficial, and it's kind of, err on the side of conservatism, and still in a way that you can, quantify and be sure one is getting stronger, and leaving no sports science stone unturned. But again, having that longevity as a priority. And none of those, and I did the same thing with the stability and like the idea that our sort of roots and progressive fighting systems roots and that philosophy. So we're unlimited in what we're, the directions we're going. We're trying to find what is the best way to do things, period. Being basically agnostic about it, like what works the best, let's do that. So with cardiovascular conditioning and stability, when new directions are, start to become popular, we test them ourselves and see how they work for us, and look at the science, and then say, okay, we've got something here, and we can provide it to other people. And so that was kind of jumping around, sort of a borderline rant, but that's the spirit of it all. Is that two things? Is that we find real easy to do ways for people to create the highest levels of health, and none of it has to be expensive.
I love it, Trevor, and I like you. I thought you did a really good job of, again, you can have access to this amazing system that, yes, maybe has a price tag that for a lot of people is just not an option, but there is a way. Nature provides. There is a way that, and thanks to your very insightful tips, because some might not have picked up on that, which it was more cost effective. You can do these things, and you don't need a tremendous amount of resources. And I think what that ties back to, because I'm a big frameworks guy, because I'm a very big strategy, tactics, tools, in that specific order, but the context determines the content. And so I got, maybe a bit of a statement on what you said, and then I got a question for you. But I love when you talked about how you have a framework, right? Feel better, perform better, last longer, and how we talked about this a week ago or so, but you are literally using that as the filter, that when you say, I'm going to go do this. So if it's, I'm going to train my jiu-jitsu, I'm going to train my kickboxing, I'm going to do my weights, my whatever it is, you literally process that through that filter. And that doesn't just determine, do I do it or don't I do it? It determines how you do it. Because it's not always what you do, it's how you do it. And I think that's a real goal. That's powerful information for people that are listening to this, because, well, what do we do? Like, we can talk about all of these different things like what to do, but information's never the problem. Information is fucking everywhere. Everybody can find information. Where people trip up is implementation. As so much so that they drink it out of the fucking fire hose of overwhelming of information, and now they got paralysis through analysis, and they don't do anything because they feel like if they don't have, like, a shower is not good enough. I need the cold plunge when and I know, and you said this already, it is good enough. It is something. And so the filter is what's going to, I think, be the catalyst that allows people to go, you know what? If this is going to make me feel better, perform better. And that might just be in everyday life, like just playing with your kids or being able to go hiking with your wife. Like that is a performance-based activity to be, to have vitality and last longer. That is a very powerful framework that you shared with people. And so maybe I'll lead it into a question for you. And I think what's really interesting is, what happens to people when the context of what they want, when a goal supersedes the framework. Meaning, I want to be a world champion. I want to dominate in jiu-jitsu competitions. I want to be the strongest power lifter. I want to be these things because you and I know from experience and from what you see this in an industry, that the setting of a goal, the desire to achieve for whatever the motivation is, that filter often has to come at a cost. Meaning, yes, you're doing everything that will allow you to perform better, but it doesn't necessarily allow you to feel better long term. And I only bring this question up. I already know you understand where I'm going with it because you are at your point in life. I know that you have access, you're a mentor to a lot of younger men, meaning you train hockey teams, you train a lot of, work with a lot of fighters and stuff. So a lot of young men, and we were there at one point, and, we're full of testosterone. We feel unbeatable. And I know you have a lot of very serious conversations with young men trying to get them to see the longer game and to make sure, is the juice worth the squeeze, so to speak, right? So I love your framework. What's been your experience on the receptiveness of younger, men and men that have goals and ambitions and are driving for something?
Well, that's the kind of the classic paradox of life is, they say youth is wasted on the young, and it's not because young people are not intelligent. It's just part of it is, you only know what you've experienced directly. And young people will be like processing speed wise and cognitive speed wise. They're actually very often like the most intelligent people anywhere and more intelligent than the older people that are telling them what to do. And so when you talk to them about the future and you talk to them about, okay, someday 30's coming and 40's coming and 50's coming. And so it's a little bit hard for people. It's hard for them to put themselves there. Because you remember being 20, 30 was never really coming. And then 40 was never really coming. And then it was there. And so with athletes that are bent on competition, that is challenging. But when you can create an environment where these discussions happen freely and all the time and in a way that, is not lecturing, it's just simple, statement of fact and statement of experiences, then you let people know, okay, always think about your goals and always revisit your goals because you will change and your goals will change. And that's the classic sort of, people say my goal was to run 10 miles and so I did this. And then I achieved my goal, but then my hips and my knees and my feet and everything was sore. It's like, okay, was that really the goal that served you the best? Is that the goal that you would really, if you go back again with that, you say, not really, my goal is actually to be healthier and stronger and have more energy and have this health and fitness that would be, enriching and elongating my health span, and those would be, more sensible goals. And with competition, this is why we talked about this before, but for a long, long time, I have had little to no interest in taking a young person or young people and getting them into the path of martial arts competition and eventual martial arts championships and all that. Now, people that are on that path, I'm honored to have the opportunity to serve and to help them along the path. But the two things are with that is that you see it over time. You see the broken bodies and you see the broken minds and the broken bank accounts. And if we talk about, how many people we know in the MMA space that created financial independence by doing it, it doesn't take long to count them. And how many had big problems because of it. And whatever athletic competition sort of space one is in, martial arts or your hockey or whatever, it's coming to an end at some point. but the end is, like 40 or 35. And with everything that people are doing, everything that we want to help be involved with, people living to be 100 and beyond. So if one lives to be 100 years old and their athletic career ends at 35 or ends at 40, even ends at 45 or 50, then 65, 60, 50% of their life is going to be happening after that. And the most important things that we can do for our health to enhance our life at that point are going to be the way we exercise and the way we eat. And those sport sort of endeavors prevent people from moving and exercising well later on, and just have an enormously, deleterious effect on their life in general. Like the bodies that can't exercise, they don't move well, they're in pain all the time. There's all these problems, and never mind head trauma and things like that. So that's why I pivoted many years ago from getting people into that space. And again, I'm still honored to have the chance to work with people that are in it, and they're just like, there's lots of people who are going to say, I'm going to be in it. That's it. I live a warrior's life. I walk a warrior's path. Okay, then if you're going to do that, let's do this as successfully and as safely as possible, and doing it in such a way that is making the world a better place. And you're setting a good example for young athletes, and you're a great role model. We know there's lots of people like that, and so that part, that part is you're going to help those people, and you're always going to bring it back for everybody involved in these discussions. Think about your goals. Think about your athletic career, and think about your life as a whole, not ending when your athletic career ends. Because most people will say later on in life that the happiest, the best years of their life, on average, for instance, are 40 to 60. But those years, one's athletic career, like competitive athletic career, is not always, but very often completed. And if you've done things in that time that prevent you from enjoying your life later on and from being of service, and basically all the good things in life are a little bit, just unnecessarily limited because of sport and because of training. So we're trying to create that sort of clarity all the time. And like I said, discussions around the gym, the discussions personally and professionally and privately, that's the direction. Is you want to use competition for what it really is, which is like just to get yourself better and to help everybody around you get better. But please don't sacrifice your body and your health to do it. And if you're absolutely bent on doing that, which some people still will be, okay, let's just at least do that as safely, successfully, and as beneficially to the entire world as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think part of what I'm hearing as a practical solution, and I think this is again just your mission, and it's exactly what you just said, but is you create the environment. And so you're going to have these individuals that are determined to achieve goals. And so we know that goals aren't achieved by yourself. It takes a team. There is a process. And so when you create the process, if that environment that you're creating, if part of the team is focused on life after the goal, I equate this to maybe, to the military kind of reference where in the beginning, you go back, not that many years, but you go back, the mission was to take young men, prepare them for war. And really that was kind of just what the mission was. How do we prepare them to be able to do what we need them to do when we need them to do it? And there was not the training on how do we reintegrate them back into society. Well, nobody was really worried about that. So, but as the years progress and we know more about, psychology and different things, I see the mission as being 360 degree now, which is, I think, a parallel to exactly what you're talking about. There's always going to be men, thank God, that are willing to do what needs to be done. And so we must do our best to prepare them to face the evils in the world, those threats. but we also have to be equally, if not more so, invested in when they have done their mission, when they are ready to move forward in their life, that they can reintegrate back into society as a healthy member of society. They can reintegrate back into their families, back into their communities, and there is life after service. And so I see that as that 360-degree mission. And it's very much a part of the weaponizing process for us, which is to not train. You don't just train somebody physically. You don't just prepare them for conflict. You prepare them pre-conflict and post-conflict, right? You want them to be able to not only protect themselves, family, and property, but to be there in the future, to continue to be the father, the husband, and provider in that relationship. And, so I really love what you're saying. And I think that's the big shift that we're hoping for, and why we're talking about this, and where the world is hopefully moving is, again, the right to life is paramount. Without life, we have nothing. And very close to that is, if you don't have your health, you don't really have a quality of life. And anyone that's gone through, or knows anyone that's gone through terminal illnesses and has battled, physical, mental, or emotional ailments, they can attest to that being obviously true. So, yeah, I love that with it, that we just need more people that are involved in creating and changing the process. Because when you do get young men, young women focused in on a goal, they have long-term goals, but it's hard to weigh the risk. Plus the time in our life, all that type of stuff. So if you have people around them, the mentors around them, building out the right process, they're going to thank you in those later years. And of course, and maybe Trev, real quick though, do you think it in any way, shape, or form, when you do use this framework of feel better, perform better, last longer, do you think that is a detriment to achieving the goals? Does it slow down the process? Does it make you less effective? Or do you think you can be as expedient, as focused, as driven? And do you think that you can manage both aspects so that you can perform at a peak state as well as preserving yourself long term?
So what I see is that people are, generally speaking, able to understand this need to reframe our goals. And so it may be subtle, and it may be like the explicit goal doesn't change, but it starts to kind of take root in their subconscious, and it becomes something that's okay, that's a given. I don't want to do things that are going to damage my body permanently. And it's an aspect of humanity becoming more civilized, as you said, that the military is taking care of its own before the conflict. And you're thinking about that before, instead of just sending people off to war and say, when they get back, we'll deal with it then. Sports have become like that too. Hockey is much more like that now. And that's one of the reasons why fighting is not so prevalent in hockey anymore, is because we've seen how that goes. And we've seen that these young people that were kind of groomed to be these hockey gladiators, what a detriment that was to their long-term health, and how problematic it has been. And so people are still going to, they're going to do what they have to do to pursue that. There's that warrior's path, but there's becoming, in the groups that we work with, the people that we work there's more foresight and thinking more about the future. And so, just to kind of expand upon all this, so hard training has been okay. We have the strength and conditioning methods, and we have the nutritional supplementation principles, as I said all this earlier, but the healthy living practices, and that's all sort of layered with the martial arts training, the kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, and the rest of it. And that is what really, there's lots of training systems out there, but that's what really helps to elevate everyone that's involved in that. You just become a much more powerful person because of it. And doing this for a long time now, like you and I started training together, 30 years ago, 30 some years ago. I was like 6 years old.
Yeah, I was 3.
And you were like 11. And so you kind of see how it all you see how it all goes. And so anyways, so hard training we have during the work that we do, teaching and talking to people. So we have in our teaching, as we'll talk about later on, we're going to expand the whole sort of our ability to disseminate it all has expanded to include not just the health and performance, but the relationships and finance and career dimensions of life. And of those, people tend to be not overly skilled in any of those domains, just out of the prima facie kind of thing, like tabula rasa or whatever you want to say. Like say they're just like no one's skilled at anything that they didn't have instruction in, like whatever it would be. And so we're wanting people to connect with those other dimensions as well, and or to help them connect with those dimensions as well. And it's the same philosophy though. Like, what is the very best way to create? Like, say with martial arts, okay, we want the kickboxing, like the maximum power, maximum efficiency, best possible defense, out of combative movement. That should be kickboxing. And then the hockey and speed and all that. There's the principles that govern the pursuit of those at the highest level. And but it's the same thing with relationships, and it's the same thing with finance, and it's the same thing with career. And certainly when I was growing up, I didn't know any of those things, and they weren't even important to me at all. And so, but then later on in life, it's like, okay, this stuff's really important. And those are the things, those four dimensions: career, finance, relationships, and health. Those are the four that affect our experience of life the most on this planet. And so if we're only focused on health, then we miss out on those. And back to where this whole thread began, with the idea that competitive athletes, as they move through their careers, and it's athletic, especially when you actually quote unquote make it and you reach the highest levels in sports, and lots of the hockey players that have kind of done that. But as you move through those worlds, you don't necessarily, athletes that do that don't acquire skills in terms of, certainly not relationships, certainly not finance, because it's a completely different sort of realm. It's not how, like quote unquote, most of the real world is. So helping everybody develop those skills and connecting to those dimensions, that's a big part of the next sort of evolving stage of what, personally and as a business, what we are involved in and want to be more involved in.
Yeah, I mean, balance is always, obviously what you're talking about in another framework of, career, finance, relationship, and health. And again, the myopic development of one skill to the neglect of other skills is never going to, obviously the more that we can be in balance, the better we're going to be. And I think it comes back again to creating this process of how do you train people? We call it whole person integrated development. And one of the concepts is exactly tied into that if you're just to teach somebody something physical, that you're negligent, you're failing them. And that's tied into the 360 degrees of, whether you're just looking at it from prepare to protect and defend, then there's the altercation, there's the thing, or the ability to, sorry, I think we might have lost Trev real quick. We'll just jump him back on here. Oh, there you are, Trev. So yeah, we're just talking about the balance part of it before you jumped off, and just preparing people 360, the totality of something, and again, just having that balance in people's life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or of course, career, finance, relationship, and health. So I mean, I think it is where we need to be pushing training, far more into the balance of life, whole person integrated development. So let me just hit this real quick because, so far we've kind of spent a lot of our time just kind of talking about this whole concept of don't die and more like the general overview of what the frameworks you're using and stuff are. But let's move a little bit to, because like I said, information is never typically the problem. And right now markets are saturated with a tremendous amount of information on health, fitness, martial arts, training, combat sport, whatever you want to look at. There's no shortage of information out there. So implementation becomes the big challenge, and always is the big challenge: implementation and customization. What is the process for somebody listening to this who maybe is saying, "Listen, I like the concept of feel better, perform better, last longer." What are some of the steps that you're taking? Because I know obviously at Hard Training you are implementing these things, but what are some of the resources that you are using that people could come to you, or whoever really, and be like, okay, how is this accessible to me? How do I find somebody to help me with implementation? Whether that is purchasing, a high-end, red light system, or whether it's just, how often do I need to take the shower? You know what I mean? How often do I have to stand and ground my feet? So let's talk a little bit about implementation.
So as a business, we are just getting into that kind of space. So as of now, people contact us mostly for training athletics, some longevity and health and just it's kind of general population wanting to, live a better, healthier, longer life. And so the first sort of step that we would do is say, get some blood work and get some basic fitness metrics down. And so just to jump back to, there is a health and longevity center in the US that I've kind of collaborated with off and on for back since 2011. And one of our good buddies has been one of their poster boys for a long time. And so they have in their MO, they have what's called the necessary 9. So say, okay, so in terms of health, we want people to have healthy blood sugar, blood pressure, cholesterol, body composition, want them to eat paleo, to exercise regularly, to not drink, to not smoke, to get 7.5 hours of sleep a night. And the percentage of the American population that falls under all those criteria is less than 1. So not many people are doing all of those things. And those are kind of, those are the low-hanging fruits, like blood pressure, blood sugar, you have to measure these things and then take steps, and it's a combination of exercise and nutrition and, again, healthy living practices. And the another thing that's not mentioned in their necessary 9, they call it, is the stress management, which is another big thing for people. But sometimes, like back to the blood pressure, blood sugar, sometimes there's, pharmaceutical interventions that are required. Sometimes there's hormonal interventions that are required. You have to work with people's hormones sometimes. But that is kind of the crux of it. So let's address all of these things. Let's measure them, and then we can manage them. And so that is kind of, like the way that to proceed. And the very best way to do that, you want to get these things tested. We just recently are working with a clinic in Lethbridge, just the very tip of the iceberg so far, but they have a comprehensive health assessment they do there. It's a 608 Health in Lethbridge. And so that is a place where those things that are mentioned can be sort of quantified, and then a plan to enhance them you can work towards that. And so we think of like longevity and what would interfere with that. And it's the same, it's kind of how you would, if you're dealing with, violence and how do you prepare for it, to say what are the most likely scenarios, how do we prepare for those? With health, it's basically heart disease, cancer, autoimmune conditions, and neurodegenerative conditions. And there's like basic things like say blood sugar and high insulin is an aspect of cancer and heart disease and neurodegenerative conditions. So getting on top of the easy to do things right away, that's certainly step one. And there's people that are like the Brian Johnson of the world with very high resolution, vantage point of their health and their projected health span, and yeah, the more of that is great, but everybody can do some of it. And it's like the first time that you and I talked about this, we were talking about training and martial arts and how it all works. Is everybody can do some of that, and so that's kind of, you meet people where they're at right now, and some people are going to do like the whole thing, every part of it, and measure everything, and this will be their MO for life. And some are going to do like a little bit of it, but let meet people where they are and give them as much support as possible, in any way possible, wherever they're at this time. Yeah. And yeah, if anybody wants to contact me and like they're welcome to, and we'll do our very best to help you with whatever, wherever you want to go with your health, we'll do our very best to help.
Trev froze up. Oh, there you're back a bit. Yeah, 100%. And again, if anyone wants Trev's contact information, we can put it in the comments on the podcast notes and stuff like that. Obviously, they can reach out because you do tremendous work with a lot of athletes across a lot of different, and not just athletes, but I mean, a lot of people that are really looking to, again, information is everywhere. It's not typically the problem, but boy, it can be troublesome trying to collect all that information, where if you have somebody that has the correct information that you are looking for, understands the implementation process, and can make those customizations that you need, that truly becomes kind of the holy grail combination. So we want to do that as well. But real quick, Trev, too, I want to make sure, because we're getting a little bit later in the podcast. It's a deep subject. We could talk about this a ton more, obviously, but I just want to talk about again, another resource, not just information-based, but really going deep on this subject matter, and that is the introduction of the Hard Living Better podcast that you are going to be launching here in the next couple of weeks. I know you've been talking about starting your own podcast and getting things going for the last, maybe only 2 weeks you've been really talking about that, so it's nice to see you pull the trigger on something quick like that. Most people don't sit around and they talk about it.
And nothing ever really gets done, and they put it up. And the other thing is, there's really not many voices out there in the podcast space. So I don't know if there's any related to health.
Well, it's cutting edge, Trev. I have a feeling that this podcast thing could catch on.
Before anybody else gets the idea, we'll dive in.
Well, first to market, right? It's a powerful concept.
That's right. So the Hard Living Better podcast, again, expands on the scope of our training, and that's the healthy living practices and the nutrition supplementation and strength conditioning, and the relationships and health and career dimensions. What we want to do is basically have as much information as possible to present to people, but then more importantly, have people on there that have been able to take that and make it in a usable sort of aspect of make it into a usable aspect of their time and their life. And so growing up and all this, I didn't even realize that relationships, for example, were something that you need to be skilled at all. And so Anthony Robbins, you know him, Anthony Robbins?
Yeah, I've heard about him.
Yeah, so he wrote a book called Awaken the Giant Within, and I think he might have got that idea from this podcast.
I think he might have. It's hard to say, right?
There might be a lawsuit there.
What really came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know.
That really doesn't matter.
Does not at this point.
Yeah, you can help him.
Listen. If I can take one guy like that who rides on my coattails and hits the success he has, hey, that's enough.
And you're happy to help him along.
I'm just happy to help him along his journey.
So he had this program called Get the Edge. So I bought this thing in 2003, and I was going to get the edge. and started listening to it. And it was 7 days to personal power. And so there was an introduction day and a morning routine day. And then there was 2 days on relationships, 1 day on health, 1 day on finance, 1 day on meaning or fulfillment, and a kind of a wrap up. And so I got this thing, and it was in CDs, and I in my car listened to them, and I memorized that health one, or I could almost recite it. And the finance one, basically the same thing. I actually never listened to the relation. There was 2 days, so there's 7 days to get the edge. And I never listened to the relationship days ever. And
well, I find that shocking, Trevor. Having known you for over 30 years, some people are just naturally gifted in certain areas.
Relationships. I mean, what is there to know? I mean, you get a girlfriend, right?
Let's tread carefully.
Try to hang out with their friends, and you break up, and a bunch of people are mad at you, and then the cycle repeats. Where is the science there? And then later on in life, so it's like that. Well, that was all wrong, and Anthony Robbins. That's why he had 2 days on relationships, and then we were studying all these things a little bit, and it's like, okay, well, relationship wise, this is kind of like why we want to do the podcast. It's like, well, like half of marriages, as you know, end in divorce, and of the half that doesn't end in divorce, only studies show that only 10% ish are actually self-actualized in a relationship, meaning that only 5% of relationships are ultimately successful. So that's not very good. And then, but then if you take the health aspect, like the necessary 9, and less than 1% fall into that sort of category, addressing all these things. And then there's lots of research indicating that, or suggesting that most people are not truly self-actualized and happy in their careers. And then in terms of finance, like there's 10% of Canadian population has $1 million net worth, or less than that, and then everybody probably could. And so there's lots of possibilities for people to like basically get more information, but again, more importantly, practical ways to pursue these. And very often, how do you want to do something? Find someone that's done it and model them. So that's the spirit of the podcast. We'll have people on there that have been successful in these domains and are skilled in these domains, and can we share the skills with as many people as possible, and help just kind of lift people up a little bit. And like I said, it's a great time to do it because there's really not a lot of podcasting going on out there. So
there's a void. People are craving it.
The vacuums get filled.
Yeah, that's right. And we got a special announcement, right? Because, actually something really cool, because the special announcement was the fact that we're going to have the Hard Living Better podcast, that Trevor's podcast he's launching. But I believe that I have your intro clip that we're going to show probably for the first time ever, right? Would you say? I mean, I'm sure a handful of people have seen it. But, I know Tony Robbins wanted to launch it. You denied him and said, no, I have to go with Greg. So I appreciate that. But let's cut to it real quick. Let's take a look at the intro for the Hard Living Better podcast. I know that you have a lot of great guests lined up. Of course, my application got rejected, which makes complete sense. But I'll keep submitting. One of these days, maybe we'll see it up. I can make it.
I've got a great list of guests.
I know.
But
I know. I can't crack the top 100. I'm trying.
I haven't talked to them yet. I hope it all works out. But it's quite
that makes me feel even worse that I've been rejected and you haven't even talked to anybody else yet. But here we go. Let's take a look at the Hard Living Better podcast. Back in a few seconds. Let's see it.
The hard training, high intensity, all around development system was created to help connect as many people as possible with the world's most effective strength and conditioning methods, the world's most evidence-based nutrition and supplementation principles, and the world's most powerful healthy living. Your world better. The Hard Living Better pod, and improve the information, tools, and skills that we all can use for better living. Welcome to the Hard Living Better podcast.
That's awesome, man. I love it. I sent you that little 5-second clip. I didn't quite see it on there, but I'm sure this is not the final clip because maybe I could have made the cut somewhere in there. But I loved it, Trev.
We're
I thought
going
it
to
was
talk about that, and that's the thing. It's in very early stages, and right off the bat, it's like, geez, that guy can barely use a cell phone. How's he going to do a podcast? And so, it's going to be a learning. It's going to be a learning.
Trev, in all honesty,
process.
it's going to be great, man. You've had a lot of great experiences. You've helped a lot of people, again, both personally as well as professionally, to again do what you've talked about. Right? Not only have they achieved really amazing goals, not just in athletics and performance, but if you look at your own formula, right? Live better, like feel better. You've helped people. You know what I mean? Perform better. You've done it. And last longer. And that is, you are working really hard at all three of those. And so I think the greatest testament, listen, none of us have all the answers. It's not easy it takes effort to put yourself out there and to really just genuinely want to try to help people from a true place of passion and purpose. And from the first time I met you, you were that guy. You had the passion, you had the purpose. You shared that with me. I've said at the beginning of it, like I learned a work ethic, a discipline, a focus. I learned a lot from you as well as Junior and those years that we spent together training, and then the subsequent friendship that's developed after that, which again, is so I've been talking about, really wanting to see you pull the trigger on this. And so I'm so happy that you are. I think it's going to be really, really cool. It's going to be really, really good. And like you say, yeah, everything grows, but we all start somewhere. And I think this is a great place to start. I think that, again, this subject is so dense and there's so much to unpack that, it's tough to do it all in one. So you need a format like this. And I'm excited for you to have the opportunity, and I couldn't be more supportive. So I think it's going to be really, really good. So I know.
Once again, I've kind of like you have just really sort of led the way with so many different, like we talked about this before on a previous podcast, and including the one with Junior. But when you started doing the martial arts as a business, remember, like I was teaching it through university and this kind of stuff. We had a little club, and we had some good success. And then when the hockey players came, then everything started to change. But Progressive Fighting Academy, that was born out of your, connecting me with Progressive Fighting Systems in LA, and just observe. Mostly, just the big catalyst for me was watching how much you personally grew as a martial artist through the methods, and that spoke the efficacy of the methods and the philosophy and everything. It's like, okay, let's share this on a massive sort of scale and do it as a business. And if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for you doing that, then I wouldn't probably have started doing it, like that per se. And here we are all these years later, and then. And remember, Progressive Fighting Academy was your gym. Remember when your gym was Progressive Combat Academy, and we tried to think of a name for our gym, Progressive Fighting Academy. It took about 48 hours of deep thought. It's like, yeah, well, we really pulled out with that thin air. But there was that. But then, as time's gone on, and you had this great group of athletes and great group of just human beings from UFA, and this kind of a massive following. And then as time goes on, and you streamlined it and kind of made it more, your own thing, and the real, like, the deep weaponization of humans, and and I'll be visiting you in a couple weeks to do your whole program. I'm sure the whole Buff household is counting down the days to that happens.
Yeah, the kids are preparing. We've got them in therapy.
To do that, I would wait till I leave. Then that's when they're really going to.
Well, listen, you got to do pre-contact stuff, right? You got to put the work.
That's right. That's the civilization of humanity, being proactive.
Yeah.
And so So there's that, and obviously with this podcast, and that is why I wanted to come in here and do this like this, because there was no one else who I would want to come on and introduce this with other than yourself for all those reasons, because you and I just have this, we have this just amazing friendship and training relationship, and all the all the things that we've been through and all the things we've done together in the space, and we still train together all the time online in this new world, and it's all been quite amazing.
Yeah.
And so yes, and so the podcast, that's the spirit of the podcast, is to take those same principles and apply them to these more diffuse variables of relationships, health, finance, and career. But so we're clear here, like the weaponization of people and the martial arts training methods and the work that you do, that's why this is called Don't Die, because all those things, none of them happen if we don't have, we can't really protect ourselves, and we can't really survive in the event of a violent attack. And there is, I watch your intro to this podcast, and it's true. You see it all the time, and and there's jiu-jitsu black belts are murdered, and our great beautiful friend Wyatt Lewis was murdered in a knife attack, by a small untrained person. Wyatt was, just like the best fighter around here, period, MMA or jiu-jitsu, and so helping everybody prepare for that, and all the tools and tactics and strategy that you implement with people, that's super important. And I sometimes make fun of it a little bit, in terms, because one of our friends is I'm like, okay, like, I don't know if you're in the faculty building at the University of Lethbridge Hawk, and you walk out and there's a terrorist waiting for you with a machete, but hey, if it happens, you'll be ready. But it is a serious thing, and it's so important that people are prepared for that. And the other thing that's always been true is that when you're training the very best stuff at the highest level, all the attributes that we have to be enhanced, like cognitively, like strength, conditioning, skill sets. Everything has to be like fully dialed in. And so, like what you're doing with people is outstanding. And I don't know of anyone else anywhere that does it as well. So I encourage everyone that's watching this to reach out to Greg LeBoeuf if you haven't already done it, and get weaponized.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Don't die.
Don't die. Yeah, I think as we unfortunately we'll get ready to wrap up here. We're obviously we'd love to have you back, go deeper, but there's two things that I would end with, and then I'll pass it over to you. But one is that I think one of the most powerful things of our friendship, our relationship, our connection, both as we have simultaneously been teacher and student, like back and forth. I love that, because no one person does it all by themselves. I'm always impressed with your ability and desire to grow and expand beyond, just who we are. Every day should be about one thing, and that's just get a little bit better. And to do that, we have to learn things and admit things we don't know, and we have to grow. And at the end of the day, you have always done that, which is, admirable, and I love that quality. And I see us, at 90 years old, still, having our deep conversations, and I can't wait to see where they all go. But the other side is your genuine desire to want to help people, and again, the hard training and the hard Living Better podcast is going to be another avenue with which you're going to help a great many people. So I'm a big advocate of it already. I cannot wait for the future success of that. I can't, we'll help any way that we can. And ultimately, at the end, for me, whether we're talking about health, finance, relationships, violence, weaponizing, whatever it is, obviously don't die. And the second thing off that is that it starts somewhere. Nobody's got to be perfect. You don't have to do everything, but you got to start somewhere. And that is the hallmark of what we need men to be doing, and women, obviously, in this society, is to stop putting stuff off, start working towards something, whether that's listening to the podcast, going in and do whatever, doing the health assessment, whatever it is, because the one thing that'll get us right is either A, we need to be able to protect our lives, because without life you have nothing. When it comes to health, injury is what takes us out. I've seen it in training, Trev, you've seen it in training, and it's just, if we can, again, the filter, feel better, perform better, last longer, that should be everybody's ultimate framework that everything's getting funneled through. So I hope, if anything, I hope that message comes through loud and clear off this podcast. And Trev, I'll pass it to you, man. What are your final thoughts? What do you want to leave people with? When is the podcast?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come down here and introduce the podcast. And I have tried filming a few, and I'm having a hard time finding my voice. And people have said helpful things like, well, just be yourself. And I say, well, that's never
That's
worked.
horrible advice. That's fucking horrible advice.
Yes, like,
who told you that?
sure, we have to. That's the thing, right? I think they're just trying to see if I would actually do it.
I think that was what it was. That was the running net.
You won't do that.
Yeah, let's see if he does it. It's going to be gold.
Yeah, no way. This will be something. And so yes, so we're looking forward to that. And our great friend Tom O'Connor, the top lightweight MMA fighter in Canada, will be involved in the podcast, kind of co-hosting sometimes, and sometimes doing it on his own. So that'll be fun. And so Tom will be competing on March the 22nd in Edmonton, and that will be the same weekend I'm up visiting with you. So that will be nice to have that all done at once. So we will be talking to Tom, of course, before his big match, and so that will be good. And those filters, if anybody was thinking about with like training and health and longevity, and it's people that don't always think about those things, I strongly suggest you really think about those filters, because again, older, let's say old too soon, wise too late, and all that kind of stuff, and not exactly that, but long story short, I would like to apply those a lot sooner, because they're just in the martial arts in itself. There is a way to learn like jiu-jitsu and learn it and have it be like beautiful and powerful and effective. And the same with kickboxing and the rapid assault tactics and Cali and all those things. There's a way to do. There's a way to do to create highest levels of aerobic and anaerobic fitness and strength, and without having a deleterious effect on the musculoskeletal system and on the body. And so obviously would do things differently now, and would like to help everybody to not, to when they get older, to be, getting better. And when I was with you in California in 1998, your great instructor and my instructor, Tom Cruise, not the actor, was basically kind of, beating the wheels off of me in the training context. And I was 28, he was 47 or something like this. And I was kind of at the height of the time of my fitness and competing as a boxer, and a kickboxer, and doing many things. And I'm like, man, no offense, but you're at 47, you're beating me, and it's kind of odd, right? And he said, it makes you feel any better. Dad in DeSanto is beating me worse than I am you, and he is 64. And that was something that I think about all the time, and I've seen videos of Dad when he was 68 years old, and he was moving and training, and that is kind of the same path that you're on. And when we were doing jiu-jitsu, being introduced to jiu-jitsu back in the day, the story was, Anthony Gracie was 98 years old. He was doing jiu-jitsu when he was 98. He was submitting the 20-year-olds. And jiu-jitsu is not a young man's game necessarily. You get better when you get older, all these kind of things. And during the years when I traveled around a lot to a lot of different studios in a lot of different cities in many different jiu-jitsu practitioners. And for the most part, I found that the people that were older, the jiu-jitsu practitioners, that were like the old veterans that were, there would be, 57, 6-year-olds that had started a few years ago. But for the most part, the older jiu-jitsu athletes, either didn't train or didn't train much because they had too many miles on them, basically. And there's exceptions like our legendary instructor Joe Moreira, who is still like lights out. But the majority of them weren't like that. And obviously old Thai boxers and boxers, there's a lot of that as well. So it's not that those things can't be done in a way that one gets better when they get older. It's just that they're not usually done like that. And so I really encourage people that are on that path, start thinking about that now. Run everything through those filters. They're feeling better, performing better, but lasting longer. And you yourself are always such a great role model for that, a great example. You had the long extended warm-ups and not rushing into training. And the rest of us kind of, well, let's get going here. And that, in terms of longevity, that just was just a plain and simple better way to do it. So I think that is such an important point. And everybody watching can not already think like that, please do. And as far as the future and all this, just we'll be continuing to train together, you and I, and we can connect on these and really dive into these topics because we didn't get to talk as much about the weaponization tonight, but the people that are in my orbit hear me talk about what I've talked about tonight, kind of ad nauseum, literally. And so for them to hear more about what you do and to see more of it, then let's look at that in next time. So we can, so they kind of know. I talk about you a lot, and Tom and Brad Wall, the instructor at PFA, and owner of PFA now, talks about it. But let's let everybody kind of get more connected to that, because that will be such an invaluable addition to whatever they're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So again, check your inbox. I have sent an application, a speaker form, to get onto the Hard Living Better podcast. So maybe that'll get accepted at one point. But listen, Trev.
You're on the list. He said he covered to you. No one else on the list knows they're on it.
Yeah. So I got a shot. So you're saying there's a chance. 1 in a million. That's what odds. You're saying there's a chance. Good. All right. Okay. Listen. Yeah. Perfect. You mentioned it, so I'm gonna mention it again. A little bit of promo. But Tom O'Connor fighting in Edmonton here at the River Cree. He's fighting on March 22nd, the Friday night. If you guys are interested, please get tickets. Head out, support Tom. Just follow him. You guys can find him. But also, I want to listen on my podcast. I'm obsessive. My mission is, I've told Tom this. I've sent him texts after watching him fight and stuff. That listen, that's not my field. I couldn't do what he does. These athletes, all of these athletes are amazing athletes. I wish them not only success in their training, their careers, but also a long life after, a healthy life after. They deserve support. I'm myopic in the sense that the people that come to me are violence is just a different language, and that's I had my experiences of almost being murdered, and so that's my thing. But I just want people to understand that the work that goes into these athletes, the training, the hours. So good luck to you, Tom. Trev, thank you for obviously the work that you do with these guys and helping them to be safe and prepare. But also Brad Wall, PFA, all of the coaches there. It's just such an amazing organization, Trev. And I know that you started it, founded it. Brad Wall now owns it, runs it. But the connection and the path that I have to all you guys is just, it's such a deep part of my history. And I just appreciate you guys all so much. I appreciate your time, knowledge, and energy. But yeah, good luck to Tom. Kick ass. You guys make sure you check out Progressive Fighting Academy Lethbridge, Tom O'Connor. Follow him, Instagram, all that stuff. They need your support. Appreciate the support, and he's going to have a kick ass fight, I'm sure of it. So that's it, brother. That's it, Trev. So listen, thank you again, Trev. Appreciate you. For everybody, all of my listeners and followers, thanks for joining us tonight and supporting this podcast. Famous last words: don't die, right? In whatever way, shape, or form, don't fucking die. And while we do have breath in our lungs, we'll be back next week, right back into it. Coach Brad, Coach Dustin back with me, and really helping share the process of how we educate and weaponize good men, because I believe we need more men right now than ever. it's just good people to rise regardless of what's going on in our world and be prepared physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So that is our only ask. We appreciate you. Please share, like, comment. That is how we grow this podcast. We're not looking for everybody. I'm not looking for everybody on my podcast. I'm looking for very specific people, and that happens when we find they resonate with what our message is. So I appreciate all the support, everybody. Thanks again, Trev. Until next time, everybody, please stay safe, stay weaponized. We're going to chat again soon, everybody. Take care. Have a great night.